Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, honoring Arbor Day on April 26th, with an ongoing commitment to sustainable stewardship and conservation of Missouri's forests. ChooseWood.com.
From St. Louis Public Radio. This is St. Louis on the Air.
Most people say, so? Is that, and that was amazing to me. And I got to the point where I'm like, I don't need to explain this anymore. We can be what I always wanted to be, was just a music organization. We'll always remember our roots, but we don't always have to have a disclaimer or an explanation behind it.
I'm Sarah Fensky. Since 1997, BandTogether has connected LGBTQ musicians and allies across St. Louis. What started with 10 musicians has grown to more than 100 volunteer members today. Our producer, Jane Mather-Glass, stopped by a rehearsal last Wednesday to talk with some members about the band's upcoming 25th anniversary concert.
BandTogether has performed in dozens of concerts, and they play at the St. Louis Pride Parade each year. Their shows are free to the public. They only humbly ask for donations by setting an open tuba case at the entrance to their shows. Now, BandTogether celebrates its 25th anniversary on Saturday with a concert featuring the work of renowned composer John Williams. Both longtimers and new members make up the band. Jeff Gerard has been with the band for 24 years. He's now its co-artistic director.
It's amazing that it's been going on this long. I had no idea. I really had no idea when I started up with this that I would still be doing this 25 years on.
He says he's happy to help cultivate what artistic director Gary Reynolds set out to create in the mid-90s. An environment that welcomes people of all identities and skill levels.
Gary's vision when he first started the band was exactly that, to have it be open to anyone who wants to be able to participate and find a way to get them to enjoy the experience one way or another. So that's always been a driving force behind the band.
Harold Bursler is another longtime member. He's been playing tuba in the band for 21 years and working as the set designer. He sees the band as a place of refuge, community, and friendship.
It's amazing being with the people. And we just have a great time. I look forward to Wednesday nights because it's how I can stress relief from the work week and everything. And you can show up with the worst headache in the world and play music for a couple hours with your friends, and it's gone. It's just a good environment. Music does that.
Many of the band members hadn't picked up their instruments since high school or college, but they were drawn back into music through BandTogether. Bursler is one of those people. In 2001, his friends convinced him to rediscover tuba playing.
One of them said, well, why don't you join? And I said, well, I don't have a horn. If you find me a horn, I'll play. And she called me 2 weeks later and said, I found you a horn, so I had to show up.
Tenor sax player Kimberly Matthew is one of the band's newer members. She says it's inspiring to be a part of the St. Louis institution.
It's really interesting stepping into a group that has such a strong history in the area, especially a group that's so specialized for music and also geared towards members of the LGBTQ plus community. That's a pretty specialized, nuanced group. So to have a group like that with such a strong history it was very comfortable knowing that it was such an established group. It was easy to step into the culture, start making friends, and really feel a part of the community.
Matthew is also the group's athletic director. She directs the marching band and prepares them for the Pride Parade. This year will mark her first Pride Parade with BandTogether.
Having the opportunity for our ensemble to be a part of Pride, I think it's an honor and a really awesome opportunity to be able to represent musicians, to be able to have an awesome creative outlet for members of the LGBTQ plus community.
Mark Jackson has been in the band for 14 years. He says the group has evolved quite a bit during that time.
We've all had a lot of ups and downs, and we share those all together, and we support each other. It was really tough during the COVID time when we didn't get together for almost 2 years. It was really tough. But we're like a family, so coming together, and we start from where we are again and make those connections.
BandTogether is a tight-knit community. When one of them goes through a tough time, their bandmates are there for them. Bursler has witnessed this firsthand.
A couple years ago, I had a bad surgery, and the family just came together, and they were all there. They were all there. It's just amazing. If anyone needs help with something, everyone shows up to help. One of our members, his mom had a stroke, and so a bunch of us showed up to help build a ramp at the house. It's just, that's the way the people are. Everyone sticks together and helps out.
Jackson agrees.
I think that's very unique. I think the aspect of us coming together and the length of time this band has been together, and it's grown over the years. Many bands fall apart or they dissolve into other smaller bands, but we've grown. The general community accepts us a lot.
Bursler says something he values about the organization is that it's a place where members can unapologetically be themselves.
In today's world, as much as we think we've gained all kinds of steps, we really haven't. And you can't just be yourself wherever you want to be. And here you can. And no one's going to hold anything against you. No one's going to judge you here.
As the band gets ready to celebrate its 25th anniversary, its members express gratitude for a shared love of music and a welcoming community. Kimberly Matthews says having this space is especially important today.
Everyone needs a little joy and a little community spirit right now with everything in the world that's going on and how precarious everything is. So get out and support the people who are trying to bring some light into the world with music, and enjoy yourself, because that's what we're all here for.
And that was Jane Mather-Glass talking with members of BandTogether. The local organization celebrates its 25th anniversary this weekend. And here with more on the BandTogether story is Gary Reynolds. He is BandTogether's artistic director and founder. Gary, welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. I very much appreciate you giving us this opportunity to join your show.
And we're also joined today by Jerry Farris. He joined BandTogether 23 years ago. He's a percussion section leader, a former president of the organization, and a current member. Jerry, welcome.
Thank you for the invitation.
So, Gary, take us back to 1997. What led you to say, you know what, I should start a band?
I think it's kind of an interesting story. So I mentioned to Jane before that most musicians, when you graduate school, whether it's high school or college, that's the end of your outlet for most people. You graduate, and on the shelf in your closet goes your instrument, and never to be seen again, or it gets sold off. And it doesn't have to be that way. And when I left school and lost that outlet, I looked for another place to play. And so I joined a community band in Granite City that was being ran by my very first band director. He was looking for players, and I joined it. And it was 1995, perhaps. It was a different time.
It was.
And I've often felt uncomfortable in the situation. I was often known as the gay sax player rather than Gary. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of a unique situation. I never felt that way in high school. I don't know how I felt in high school, honestly, but once I get into college, and it just felt very different. And I thought, why would that be? And so I was glad to be playing music, but I didn't feel like I could be myself. I didn't feel like I could talk about what I did that weekend or anything like that. It just didn't seem comfortable. And so one afternoon, I was having lunch with one of my closest friends who actually ended up being a founder of the organization as well. And we were talking about this. Why would we not have such a situation where we could have an instrumental group, kind of like how we have the Gateway Men's Chorus? Wondered if anything like that existed that we could join. When we found out there wasn't one.
There was nothing.
Right. So we could create one, and not really knowing how, but we did some research and saw that these did exist in other cities across the country. And so I decided to put an ad in the newspaper. Remember those?
I do.
And said, here's something I'm trying to do. It was March of '97, and we set a goal of just trying to get some musicians that would like to get together and rehearse to try to perform at that June's Pride Parade.
So you kept it pretty low key. You weren't saying you've got to be a great musician, just saying we're going to try to pull this off.
I didn't know if anyone would answer. So it's like we can't have grand plans. We just have to keep it simple. And we had 10 people show up. And the thing that we didn't look into was like what we would get in terms of instrumentation. So I had mostly sax players and a trumpet and a clarinet, basically.
So that doesn't sound like a full band at that point. Did you have to winnow out some of the saxes and then find some other instruments?
No, you just had to, you're going to have to play a trumpet part, and you're going to have to play, so you just had to just adapt to what you had. And we made it work. We didn't have a percussionist. So my best friend from high school said, I'll do it. And it actually ended up being on his birthday. And so this ragtag group of people got on a hay wagon, and we had one of our friends pull us with his SUV, and it happened. And
you did that performance.
We did that performance. We had no idea what we were going to do after that, if we were going to do anything like that, if there'd be any interest in, like, well, we did it. Congratulations, good. It was nice to meet all of you. It just continued to snowball. And so then we did the next gig we did was a concert that December, and we ended up doing it at a PFLAG holiday dinner, which I thought was kind of appropriate because I've always said, as musicians, your first audience is usually your parents. And so we found a group of parents that we could play for, and it built from there.
So at this point, this is taking off. Like, this is becoming a real band. Jerry, you got involved about 2 years after founding. How did you first meet Gary?
Well, it was Jeff Gerard, our assistant, our co-director, who I was the librarian for the Gateway Men's Chorus at that time, and Jeff said something about, you have to come to our band concert. I said, this is when we were known by our second name, which is What Band? And he said, well, he told me all about it, and I said, well, I'll think about that. Well, the next week, this time he got very insistent that I should come, and he knew I had been a musician in college and all my life. And I did. And I was really surprised that I believe there were more people on the stage than in the audience. That was one of those concerts. And they ran out of parents. And I thought, they're trying. They need help. So they probably really need me. They didn't.
They didn't. But they tricked you. They led you to believe they needed you.
That's right. And I've never had so much fun in my life, I don't think. So I've been there for a while having a lot of fun.
And so when you got involved, did you come in like, okay, I'm going to help with this, and maybe a little bit of, hey, we got that? A little bit of that, yeah.
A little bit of that.
So there's actually a little bit more color to how Jerry joined the band. So he came to our concerts just to hear what it was like. And we were pretty thin in terms of percussion, so thin that I was actually playing bass drum on one of the numbers, and I'm not a percussionist.
You're a sax guy.
I'm
picked up the
I'm not very
drumsticks.
good at many things, but certainly not percussion. And we were playing a piece that that Jerry knew very well by Gustav Holst. It was First Suite for Band, and it has a prominent one-note bass drum solo on it, and I had it. And during the performance, I completely missed it. And afterwards, Jerry came up to me and says, you know what? I'd like to join your band. I think you need some help. And by the way, there's no excuse for missing that solo. So I said, you know what? That was the best mistake I've ever made in my life because it brought Jerry into the organization.
You were happy to turn over
That's
those
right.
drumsticks. And so, Jerry, you're selling yourself a little bit short. They maybe did need a percussionist, and you were there with that.
Yeah, and I was very happy that I was. From that point on, that band seemed to me to grow every rehearsal cycle. More and more people would show up, more and more saxophone players, and a few percussion players. I was, in the back of my brain was this little voice saying, this business model does not work. That won't work, won't last. Well, that was 23 years ago.
It has lasted.
It has lasted.
What about it made you skeptical? Just sort of that it was that loosey-goosey?
No, because when the band needed financial support, it wasn't a tuba case at the time. It was a trumpet case, I believe. There were other things that we used, but and I thought, well, if you're just going to ask people for money, it may probably not be viable.
That's a hard mode to make work, but that has continued to be your mode.
It is. We haven't charged admission for our concerts. We never have. It was sort of the original vision of if we're going to have a band where we're not going to audition you. You don't have to be a great player. You don't have to have played in the last 30 years. If we're trying to make it accessible for everyone to join, we didn't want it to have rules for our audience where now it's cost prohibitive. I'd like to go, it's too expensive. And plus, I think we were very humble, and we still are in the very beginning. It's like, who's going to want to pay to hear this? And plus, the more you charge, the higher the expectation is. It's going to have to be great, so let's keep the expectations low. So we've never charged, and we're thankful for that because we're in the black, and we live within our limits, and we make it so that with our concerts we say, hey, we've done this for so long. If you'd like us to keep doing it this way, feel free to drop in the tuba case what this night was worth it to you, or for you to keep us that way. And if you can't do it this time, that's okay. And we have a very generous community, and we're very thankful for that. And it makes us want. Well, it's not why we do it, but we do it for the community for sure, and that there's just that support of we're here no matter what, and so that gives us the urge to continue on.
I love that there are really no barriers to entry. I do find myself wondering, has anybody ever tried to join where you're saying, you know what, we're happy to welcome another sax, but we need somebody who's a little better at the sax in order to make them part of this ensemble?
No, we've never done that. Like I said, we don't audition anyone. The only criteria we have for people to join is you need to at least be 18. You need to be able to read music. And unless you're a percussionist, you need to have your own instrument. We don't keep our own inventory outside of percussion in terms of instruments that we have. And there's been times, it's been a long time, but there's been times where people have joined, and I thought, I'm not sure if this is going to work out, but I'm not going to squelch their enthusiasm. There was a time many, many seasons ago where someone showed up with a trumpet, did not know how to play the trumpet, said that they played by ear. And I thought, this is gonna move too fast if you're gonna try to pick it up by ear. But I said, you know what? Have fun with it. See how it goes. About 2 or 3 rehearsals, and then said, you know what? This isn't for me. That's fine.
Yeah.
You find your own path of what's going to work for you and what's not, and rather than us say maybe not.
It can be a self-selecting group, and people understand whether their contribution makes sense.
There's people that I met when they first came in. I thought, I don't know if this is going to be the group for you. I'm thinking to myself, because sometimes we were kind of loosey-goosey in how we run our rehearsals, and I could tell this person was very structured and used, and I thought, I don't know. That person's going to celebrate their 20th anniversary this year. So everyone finds what they need to get from it, and I'm very thankful for that.
People can surprise you. So, Jerry, I'm curious, joining 23 years ago, what do you see as some of the biggest changes in those decades?
Well, I think, first of all, our audiences have grown to be surprisingly large.
That's a wonderful change.
It is a wonderful change. And anybody that has experience with asking people for money, like NPR certainly experiences this.
Sure.
Sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't. But as Gary mentioned, our audiences are part of our little community. We like to think our family, and without them, we are not there. Although we'd figure out some way, I think, to keep doing it, just as they did when they began. Besides the fact that the group has grown in size, they've gotten better. Amazingly, you can do that if you practice. It's astonishing.
And so are there a lot of practices?
So we rehearse every Wednesday evening.
Okay.
I try to run a fun ship but a tight ship, because I look at it as Jeff and I have 2 hours this whole week, and we got to make the best of it. Mm-hmm. And we do. And Jerry's absolutely correct that we have grown in musicianship year over year. This concert that we have this Saturday is all John Williams music, and John Williams doesn't write easy music. I don't think he ever has. But John Williams is the reason why I got into music. That's why it's special to me. And so even in the very early years, I kept pulling out John Williams. And was like, let's do this one. And we were playing John Williams way before we had the ability to probably be doing so. But we have definitely gotten to a place where this is actually going to be our third John Williams concert that we've done in our existence. So we're calling it John Williams the Trilogy. And so we definitely grown in musicianship. And I think what's also changed is just overall acceptance. You know, having people that first, in the early years, that would join the organization were many were very hesitant. Like, please don't put my name in the program. When we're marching in the parade, put me in the middle. So if the TV cameras are there, I'm not going to be seen. Things have changed quite a bit, and not only just with the environment, but also our own acceptance of ourselves, and feeling like we can be who we are and not have to be afraid. But it took a lot longer for the newer ones, the original ones, to get to that point. Now we have people come in and, they've been who they were since it seems like birth, and that's a fantastic thing for us to see how that's evolved over time. And, we used to always have to talk about, people would say they wanted to join, and I felt like I had to explain, well, just so you know, this is an LGBT, and it got to a point where most people say, so? Is that, and that was amazing to me, and I got to the point where I'm like, I don't need to explain this anymore, and we can be, what I always wanted to be was just a music organization. We'll always remember our roots, but we don't always have to have a disclaimer or an explanation behind it.
Yeah, the changes in society are also reflected in this wonderful band. 25 years. That anniversary is this weekend, Saturday at Wash U 560 Music Center. That's happening at 8 p.m. It's free and open to the public. They will put out that tuba case. You can put your donation in if you support the work. BandTogetherSTL.com has all that information. Gary Reynolds, Artistic Director, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And Jerry Farris, who's been a 23-year member, former president of the organization, and a current member, thank you as well.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
This episode was produced by Jane Mather Glass and edited by Emily Woodbury, with podcast design and audio engineering by Aaron Dorr. St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, honoring Arbor Day on April 26th with an ongoing commitment to sustainable stewardship and conservation of Missouri's forests. ChooseWood.com.